It's your boy Havoc, final round. What a weekend of fighting. We had 2 of the 4 horsemen competing, the other 2, Ryan Garcia and Tio. But we had Tank and Haney doing their things this past weekend. By the way, I don't know what the hell Ryan Garcia is doing. He's over here twiddling his thumbs on social media. He needs to be in the ring. I don't know where the hell you at. Ryan Garcia, get back in the boxing ring. But these 2 fights with Tank and Haney were eerily similar. It was very weird how, you know, both fights resembled. I mean, like I said, 2 of the 4 horsemen competing in both fights. Both were heavy favorites. Both of them, in some people's eyes, underperformed. The underdogs in both fights performed a lot better than what people anticipated. Both matchups were orthodox versus southpaw fighters. Lots of interesting things going on, man. And let's start off with Tank and Pitbull. In terms of Tank, man, was it an underwhelming performance? I can't say that, man. He did his job. He won the fight. For people saying that Pitbull won, I'm sorry, I don't see that. I think you're full of it and you're tribal if you're saying Pitbull won that fight. But Pitbull performed absolutely well. I'll get into him a little bit later. But in terms of Tank, I actually think it was a pretty decent performance. Now, I don't see this brilliant boxer that a lot of people make Tank out to be. I see lots of potential, right? I see a guy with a lot of talent, and I do see the foundation for him to be a very skilled boxer with a high ring IQ, but I don't think he's there yet. And I think a lot of people are over kind of estimating how skilled of a boxer he is, even though he did do a pretty good job of turning Pitbull and clinching up when he got in bad positions and, you know, mixing it up, fighting forward, back off the back foot, you know, in the pocket at times with his back to the ropes in the corners. He showed a lot, but he still needs to develop a little bit more. I want to see a little bit more consistency. I think him and Tio are somewhat almost like even with each other in terms of their skills. They have all the potential in the world, but they need to kind of fulfill it still. They're not there yet. Like, I bring up a guy like Boots Ennis. He's there. He's there. He's fulfilled the potential. For all Boots Ennis has to do is just get the fights. But for Tank, and you look at a guy like Tio, I think these guys, they have the potential, but it hasn't been fulfilled yet. They haven't yet reached that, I wouldn't call them master class boxers. But I think that Tank had a good performance, and you got to give him some credit, because I actually think it was more beneficial that he went through a 12-round fight rather than just knocking out another opponent or, you know, getting an easy victory. Because I said it last week with the Tio fight. Your blessings can be your curses in this sport, or vice versa. Your curses can be your blessings. For Tio, very athletic, very talented. Now, I didn't think this would be a problem till later with Tio, but to our surprise, it happened with Kambosos. I said one of the things that we had to be concerned about with Tio is, will he rely on his power and athleticism? Granted, Tio's been going through a lot. Supposedly, he almost died after the fight. There's a lot of stuff going on with him, but still, he went into that fight with Kambosos and he fought and tried to rely on his power and athleticism rather than his boxing skills. And I said that if Tio keeps on doing that, if he decides to rely on his God-given abilities as he's climbing up the ranks, okay, it's going to catch up to him. I don't care how much power you have. I don't care how athletic you are. That will only take you so far, especially as you get to the top of the ladder where everybody's talented. Everybody has a little bit of power. Everybody, you know, everybody's a good boxer. They'll be able to negate that. And then you're going up in weight class. Your power is going to dwindle a little bit. And here you got Teofimo knocking guys out left and right, okay? And he's not getting the experience. You know, it's good, it's great, but at the same time, when he runs into a good opponent, he's gonna have to get through 12 rounds, and he may not be used to that. He may not know how to deal with that. This is the beautiful thing about Devin Haney. And this is why I'm saying it was a good thing for Tank to get a little experience and have a little adversity and go through a 12-round fight. Because you think about Haney, right? Not the biggest puncher. But here's where his curse turns into a blessing. He's going through 12-round fights. He's having to navigate through that. He's getting that experience. He's learning how to work through adversity. You know, he's learning how to stay focused for 12 rounds. You saw with Tio, you saw it in the Nakatani fight, and you saw it in Kambosos. He wasn't focused. He wasn't focused. He didn't know how to navigate those waters of going through a 12-round fight. The only time he showed us that was with Lomachenko. You know, and the only reason he managed to be consistent in that fight because he knew he was going against one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. And that's the beauty for Haney, is that he's learning, because he can't knock guys out, he's getting that experience, learning how to work through 12-round fights, learning how to get through the adversity, learning how to set the tempo and the pace and manage himself. And that's why I'm saying it was probably a good thing for Tank to face a little adversity, to go through a 12-round fight with Pitbull. There's some currency in that, and we got to give him some credit. And I think in the long run, that will benefit him more. And I was actually kind of surprised. I didn't like it at first that he was in the 12th round. He kind of was skating to victory. He was dancing around. He pretty much felt like he had the fight in the bag. But then I thought about it. It's just like, well, this guy's really trying to learn how to become a complete boxer. Not just a big puncher, not just a knockout artist. Okay, not relying on his athleticism and his power. He's trying to become a complete boxer, and he's going to need that as he moves forward, especially as he goes up in weight. Because I tell you what, Tank's power, it may not translate the higher he goes up in weight. Don't get me wrong, he can punch, he'll always be there, but don't be surprised if that power is not the same, okay, as he goes up in weight. So he has to understand how to box for 12 rounds. So I think he did a good job. Yes, it would have been nice to see him get a TKO or a knockout, and same goes for Haney. It would have been nice for them to have big statements. But at the end of the day, you know, considering what was on the line with Kambosos. But tell you the truth, I don't even know if Mayweather and Ellerbe and Tank and his team are even interested in that fight with Kambosos. And I don't know. I just don't get that vibe that they want that fight that badly. They're on their own path. They have their own blueprint. They want to create the next big pay-per-view star. They want him to, you know, they want to milk as much money out of Tank as possible, preserve his record, and preserve his health. And that's the route they're going to take, the money route. I can't really necessarily blame them. It's not going to be a glorious route. It's not going to be a route where I say that was one of the best fighters that we have ever see grace the ring. But, I mean, can I blame him? At the end of the day, this is his job. He's trying to make money. He's trying to change his family. So I don't blame Tank for taking this route. But I'm getting the vibe that him and his team don't really care for this Kambosos matchup for whatever reason that may be. And let me say this. Kambosos is no washover for Tank. Remember that Kambosos has put many rounds with Manny Pacquiao throughout camp. Manny Pacquiao, I don't care what anybody says, is a way better fighter than Tank is. Now, maybe Tank one day can surpass that, but I'm sorry. Manny Pacquiao is a way better fighter than Tank Davis. More power, more speed, better footwork, just better in every aspect, in my opinion. A prime Manny Pacquiao. Okay, and Kambosos has experience in sparring, multiple rounds with him. He knows how to deal with the southpaw. He knows how to deal with power. He knows how to deal with speed. You think that Tank Davis, his style is going to be very foreign to him? It's not. I don't believe it is. You know, I don't think that's a terrible matchup for Kambosos. I really don't. But for some reason, it doesn't seem that Tank and Mayweather are that interested in going to Australia, even though I don't even know if that fight can happen in Australia with all the COVID restrictions and all that. But we'll see. To me, I would like to see it. I think that's the more fan-friendly fight compared to Haney and Kambosos. But it seems like that Haney and Kambosos makes a little bit more sense. And on top of that, it's the fight for undisputed on all that crap going on politically. But yeah, that's how I feel about Tank. I think he did well. He did his thing. It was probably good that he got through a 12-round fight, faced some adversity, learned how to navigate through that. But I wouldn't say he got exposed. He did get clipped with some shots, but I mean, Pitbull, he's a wild dude, man. And he throws those loopy hooks. But I will say this, Tank needs to be a little bit more consistent in how he approaches the fight. He needs to have a game plan and be consistent with it. Like, I would have liked to see him establish an early body attack. Now, granted, it's probably hard to get downstairs on a small guy like Pitbull. This is the first time Tank's probably ever faced a guy who is smaller than him, right? So that proposes some awkward matchup or things for him stylistically. But, you know, he did well. He did his thing. Kudos to him. I wish he would take some bigger fights. This was a good one, don't get me wrong, but I'm just referring to the past. I hope that Tank kind of steps it up a little bit from this point on. In terms of Pitbull, this dude is amazing. I think he has so much potential. I love his pressure fighting style, but he needs to get a damn jab. I was saying before the fight, he doesn't utilize a jab. And honestly, I don't think he has one because the times I see him throw a jab, it's very sloppy. If this kid can get a jab, he's going to be doing serious damage. He's doing damage without one. Okay, he cuts off the ring well. He's relentless. He's got a good chin, as he's shown last night. He shows spurts of good head movement, which he needs to continue to work on and be consistent throughout within the fight. On top of that, if he improves his head movement, it's going to open up countering opportunities to the counter punch coming forward as a pressure fighter. You know, but he needs to get a jab, if nothing else. That jab will take him a long way. Now, granted, we had a southpaw versus orthodox matchup. That jab doesn't line up easy, but once again, I don't see Pitbull throw too many jabs. He's all hooks. And that's another thing. He needs to kind of refine his hooks, not be so loopy in the way he punches sometimes. But if he can kind of refine his hooks, fight behind the jab, not lunge in all the time. Sometimes he'll come from all the way to the outside and jump inside. If he didn't have a good chin, Tank would have hit him with one of those uppercuts, timed him, and would have taken him out. But he has an excellent chin. I mean, hell, his head was so hard that it sounds like Tank broke his hand on it. And if he improves that head movement, controls distance a little bit better, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And honestly, I would love to see a rematch down the line with Tank and Pitbull. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Tank wants any part of that anymore. He doesn't want no part of that. But man, who knows? Maybe the money will be there, and who knows? Maybe Pitbull keeps climbing up the ranks and has success from this point on. So props to Pitbull. He did better than I thought. I thought he would get knocked out around rounds 1 to 8, but I did say if he gets past round 8 that he would make it to the scorecards. But I wasn't shocked because I watched some film study. If you don't watch those guys round by rounds in their fight, you can kind of gloss over at how actually good they are in terms of JoJo Diaz and Pitbull. And Pitbull, he's a pretty damn good fighter, man. He's ferocious. He's gonna wash some of his next opponents. And it's good that he got this experience against Tank. He got past Tank, so he's gonna be very confident moving forward. And he's probably gonna have a little bit more clout behind him now because he had this fight with Tank. Because before he was kind of high risk, no reward. Okay? High risk with no reward, and nobody wants to fight a guy who's high risk and brings no reward. But now that he has some clout, a lot of guys may want to fight him now, okay? And he can get some big paydays. You know, it's like Boots Ennis. He's high risk, no reward, and he's sitting from the outside looking in. He's gonna need somebody to take a fight with him to build his name off of. So, good job by Pitbull. Looking forward to see him fight in the future. Love his style, but he needs to add some things. And one more thing about Pitbull, I would love to see him work with Eddie Reynoso. Dude, that would be a perfect camp. And especially with Canelo Alvarez, likes to put pressure himself, and sometimes he won't even utilize a jab. Canelo won't even utilize a jab. So that would be a great camp for Pitbull to go to But like I said, that's probably not going to happen. But man, it would be a phenomenal match made in heaven for Pitbull to go over there and kind of learn. I don't like telling guys to scrap the people they've begun with, but at some point, sometimes you need a little bit more in terms of training. And I think Pitbull would flourish in the camp with Eddie Reynoso and Canelo Alvarez, and they'll really teach him how to be an effective pressure fighter. Let's go to JoJo and Haney. Now, once again, I said, be on the lookout for JoJo, you guys. I didn't think he was going to win, but I knew he wasn't going to be a washover. JoJo is a sneaky fighter. I've sparred guys like this. They're so damn sneaky. They have like almost this rope-a-dope effect. You think about Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, only it's like a different format of the rope-a-dope, right? Because when Ali did it to Foreman, he was talking junk, he was in his ear, he was encouraging him to keep on throwing his punches, and he punched himself out in the later rounds because he was fighting with emotion, okay? It's somewhat like that, only a different format. You got these guys like JoJo Diaz. They're not the biggest, they're not the fastest, they're not the strongest, they're not the flashiest, no glaringly big obvious attributes, right? But they have good chins and they stay in front of you all night long. And you start boxing these guys, you start tapping them up, man. You get in, you get out, they're not hitting you back. You feel like you have complete control of the fight, and you may have complete control of the fight. And one of the things in boxing is like setting a pace sometimes, right? And because when you're able to hit a guy at will and he's not hitting you back, sometimes you almost start setting this relentless pace for yourself because you're almost getting excited that you're landing punches and this guy can't do anything back to you. So what do? You keep throwing punches. You keep on going for him. It's like, oh, I can hit this guy and he's not hitting me back. There's no consequences. I'm going to tee off on him. Okay? And you start teeing off on the guy, and little do you know, you're kind of setting this tempo and this pace that you can't keep up with over the fight. And if you're not careful, a guy like JoJo Diaz, who has a good chin, he's going to take some punches from you, and he's going to be in your face all night. All of a sudden, one of the rounds, he's going to come in there, and he's going to snap a good body shot, or he's going to hit you to the chin check you, or hit you on top of the temple. And you're going to be like, where the hell did that come from? And he's going to hurt you. And you've seen in some of JoJo's fights with Fortuna, or you've seen with Farmer, that's exactly what he'll do. He'll start taking over the fight. He'll catch you with a punch. He'll sleep on him, okay? Because you feel like you got control. You can land on him. You're touching him up. And then out of nowhere, when you get content or you get complacent, he lands a big shot on you, and he starts to switch the tides and change the momentum. And you start wondering what the hell is going on. That's why I compared him to like the tortoise and the hare. He's the tortoise. If you're not careful with a guy like JoJo Diaz, he's gonna cross that finish line. He's slow and steady, but you take your foot off that gas pedal, you get complacent, you're gonna find JoJo Diaz crossing that finish line before you do. And that's why I also have to give credit to Haney, because there were moments in that fight to where he could have got complacent, and he did kind of get complacent because he got clipped a few times. He got stunned, but he was able to regain control and be the ring general and get the momentum back. And that's what I wanted to see from Haney. And I said that in the pre-fight breakdown. I want to see Haney be consistent in the later rounds. I don't want to see him fade, because that's when I felt JoJo was going to make his move somewhere mid to late rounds. And he was going to start landing those sneaky shots. He was going to lull Haney to sleep, let him have his moments, and then he was going to slowly try and take over. And he had his moments, but ultimately Haney was disciplined, and it was probably a good thing that Haney and Tank saw what happened to T.O., because it made him alert, like, hey, I can't take my opponent for granted. And they went in those fights, and they were mentally prepared to do what they had to do to win. And no, Haney didn't get the knockout. He didn't get the TKO. But that wasn't an easy fight. JoJo's no wash. I don't think anybody walks over JoJo. And when he did get clipped, he was able to maintain focus and find a way to get the momentum and be the ring general. And even JoJo said, Haney's got a little pop. He's got a little pop. So we got to give credit to Haney. But I will say this about Haney, man. I am concerned for his defense moving forward. I do think there's some holes in his defense. I don't know why people are comparing this kid to Floyd Mayweather. I do not see the comparisons, especially stylistically. He doesn't even utilize the shoulder roll. He may fight out of that Philly shell, but he doesn't utilize the shoulder roll principles, you know, and he's still getting clipped with some big punches, you know, and getting stunned. And he's going to run into some issues if he doesn't clean up his defense. He's really going to run into some issues because JoJo Diaz is not the biggest puncher, and JoJo Diaz doesn't have a long, he's not as lengthy in terms of his reach compared to Haney, and he was still able to touch Haney up and then stun him and hurt him. Now, I got to give credit to JoJo because he's a lot more slick than people think he is. You got to watch JoJo's fight round after round to understand that he's a lot better than he seems to be. But can you imagine Haney going up in weight class, facing a guy more rangier than him or just as rangy with just as much speed or more power? And I think stylistically, he's shown that he's going to have trouble with a pressure fighter or a good technical boxer. Because we saw what happened with Jorge Linares, who's a kind of boxer-puncher type. And then we saw what happened with JoJo Diaz, who's more of a pressure-oriented fighter. He had trouble with both. He was getting clipped by both. And we know he's not going to stay in this weight. We already know he's having a hard time keeping his weight down. How long is he going to stay in this division until it starts to affect him like it did Tio? So if he starts moving up, okay, he's going to run into some issues if he doesn't clean that defense up. But once again, Haney's young. He has all the potential in the world. He can fix these things. But I thought we would see a lot more improvement from the Jorge Linares fight to this fight, because Linares exposed some of his defensive holes, and I thought some of those things would be fixed. Okay, and they weren't. And I'm just wondering if they're even aware or addressing these issues moving forward, because if not, and he goes up in weight class, he's gonna have some serious issues. I still buy into Haney, but he needs to improve some things. And I buy into him only because he's still young. He's very talented, very athletic, high IQ'd, and he's getting this 12-round experience, which is gonna take him a long way. He can fix these things, but he needs to be aware of them, and he needs to show improvement in his next fight. But I think there's a good chance we may see Haney and Kambosos for undisputed. It just seems to make sense. But I do not sleep on Loma. He's got Comey coming up, and I got Loma. You know, if Loma makes some noise and he makes a big statement, don't be surprised if he's trying to go for all the marbles. But I think Kambosos lines up very well with Haney. I think that's the fun fight to watch would be Kambosos and Tank, but I think he would match up pretty well with Haney compared to Loma or Tank. But I could be wrong because, like I said, Kambosos has lots of work and experience with Pacquiao, and Tank and Lomachenko are both southpaws, okay, as was Pacquiao. So maybe that can give him a huge advantage. But tell me what you guys think. Like the video, subscribe if you're new, comment down below. Who do you think won the fights? I don't agree with you if you thought that JoJo or you thought that Pitbull won the fights. I think that's a reach, but they did perform very well. Do you think the performances of Tank and Haney were underwhelming? Who do you think Kambosos is going to face next? Who do you think he should face? And yeah, let me know your opinion, you guys. It's your boy Havoc. Final round. Get at me.